sound no. Hey everyone, it's NunPub. we don't have to have technical issues anymore. Oh, my volume is so weird.
It sounds okay.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just deal with it, I guess. Anyway, this is getting ready for physical conventions. That's my cat hat, and this is David Berkeley and Bertessa. We're doing fine.
Yeah.
So let's go around and do some introductions. Who are you, and what's your favorite convention?
Go ahead, David.
Oh, yes. Hi. I'm David Bruglia with Weird Draft Games. My favorite convention is probably Origins because it's big but not too big, busy but not too busy, and that's been my experience with that.
What about you, Bertessa?
My name is Bertessa Elise, and with Funko Games, and my favorite convention as of now is Metatopia, because that was the convention where I first got to meet so many different people, and it felt like a really intimate venue and just kind of like a giant sleepover. So it was really cool, and I like the structure of how the panels and the playtesting were ordered, so you had time for both. So I like that.
Oh, okay. I love Metatopia. It's so great. Fully agree with Fratessa on that. As far as all conventions, I really like OrcaCon. Sorry, I can hear myself twice and it's confusing my head. Anyway, my favorite local convention is the Rocket City Game Fair. Sorry. Anyway, I'll introduce myself. I'm Carla Kopp. I'm a game designer, developer, and publisher, and I run Weird Draft Games and Galactic Raptor Games. Great.
Yes. We've done it.
We're doing great. Everything's fine. This is a good panel. We've got questions and answers, working cameras.
Does anyone have eyes on the question?
Technical difficulties.
Oh, now I hear that. Now you've muted. You're muted. Still muted. Still muted.
Y'all are muted.
Carla and David, you're muted. While they figure that out, how are you guys doing? We are, we wanted to do this panel about physical conventions because, well, it's finally coming up, now that vaccines are out, and hopefully people are getting them, and, the light at the end of the tunnel is finally visible. So really, we wanted to explore, what does it look like going back to physical conventions? Because that's something that's still, a new idea to explore. And, it's a little bit scary, but also very exciting to see people face to face. So that's why we wanted to have this panel, because I think that it's totally normal to both be terrified and excited for the prospect of a physical convention. So I believe Carla has some questions for us to take us off.
Yes. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Whoa.
Wonderful.
And I can't hear. No, I can still hear myself twice. Great. It's fine. Everything is fine.
It's not a NunPub. We don't have technical difficulties. So, Fratessa just answered a great question that she asked herself about excitement about attending physical conventions again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it is kind kind of scary too, because it's something we haven't done in a year and a half for some of us, maybe more for others. But I'm definitely excited to go back to conventions. I've made a lot of great other designer friends and publishing friends at conventions, and I'm really excited to see them all again and play games, talk shop, test their designs, test my designs, and just enjoy each other's company once again, which is kind of why I got into the hobby in the first place. So I'm excited for that.
I'm just so excited to not be in my house anymore. Do I sound super weird?
Yeah, maybe that's
just a little bit.
Oh,
it's
Okay.
fine.
no, just you and David talk.
All right, we'll figure this
Okay.
out.
So
Yes. So for
Um,
Tessa, I'll ask you questions.
yeah.
You will provide riveting answers because you are an amazing person. And then I'll follow up with my own answers, which will just be kind of good, I guess.
Okay.
Tessa, what are you? Is there anything you are specifically worried about attending the conventions again that you might want to talk about?
So my biggest worry with attending physical conventions is financial. I was able to start, I was able to start attending conventions outside of Georgia when I was still in Georgia, only because I was able to get, these scholarships and sponsorships that helped me to do so. But then whenever pandemic hit, I was able to, be in these different digital playtesting groups and digital conventions. However, with the physical conventions, now once again, I have to kind of figure out the cost for travel, the cost for a hotel, the cost for taking time off of work, and then also a cost for a dog sitter for however long that I'm away. So it's a lot more planning and is it worth that, and I have to be a lot more intentional about it. So yeah, that's my biggest worry. Other than being around people who are very relaxed about their health standards, that's also a huge worry, but I will be masked up. So, and even when I attended conventions, I always attended anime conventions. So I was a bit of a veteran with knowing not to share food and not to touch other people's food and eat while I'm playing, because that's how you get sick. So I think my guard will be up because I just already don't trust people at conventions. I'll just be taking a lot more breaks and walks in open air and such.
Yeah, fresh air is great. That's a good remedy for a lot of things, probably, especially being cooped up in some locations that we haven't been to in a while, and that's just not used to.
So
did you want to try some?
yeah,
answers?
I wanted to try to answer things. Now that I can't hear anything, it's gonna be great. So the one thing I'm really worried about is that I haven't really been around people all that much, other than like in the past month where I've started to interact with friends and get back into leaving my house for periods of time, because I was like literally in my house for like 1 year where I didn't go anywhere. So I haven't been around crowds. I'm not used to like the noise level of conventions. So just going to conventions and like just being surrounded by people and like seeing how I react to that. So I've been trying to like prepare for this by I went on vacation and I had a group of friends with me and we were all like in the same area. So like I'm gradually like taking steps to like get to that whole like, oh yeah, I can be okay surrounded by like 50 other people in the same room.
Yeah. I'm grateful and thankful that I was able to form a small social group, social bubble when the pandemic started, and that worked out for us. So I am thankful that I don't have to kind of reacclimate myself to crowds of people. But strangers are strangers, and it takes time to get used to that again, for sure. I think no matter what. Also concerned, obviously, about health concerns. I'm vaccinated, but that doesn't mean I couldn't get something or pass something. So definitely very conscious of that. I am going to be a little sad because, and rightfully so, people are deciding not to go for their own safety concerns, and that makes sense. But it will be sad to, probably not see some of the people that you're used to seeing at most conventions. In a normal year, you see them, in a row, this convention, that convention. It almost feels like you're never apart, taking small breaks from each other, which is unfortunate, but again, understandable. But I'm hoping they'll still be, a lot of fun and we'll just have to stay as safe as possible. That is the number one concern for things.
Mm-hmm. And when we go to these conventions, another thing that we like to do is to try and figure out like what we can do, what prep we can do beforehand. So like, are there things that you guys like to do with regards to contacting publishers or a checklist that you like to have in mind before you tackle different conventions, or you have like a pre-convention ritual or something like that?
I definitely do. So before I go to a convention, first I have to get all my prototypes ready, and update them all, and also reacclimate myself to teaching them and playing them, because anything that is pitch ready, I want to be able to show to somebody, but I might not have shown it to anyone for a year. So just being able to do I practice 30 seconds of a pitch, 5-minute pitch, 45 minutes of teaching and playing the game, just so regardless of what happens, wouldn't it be great if a publisher's like, hey, do you want to sit down right this minute and play it for an hour? I can just be like, sure, I am prepared for this instant and I'm not going to be super nervous. I'm just going to do it. So and I try to get everything up to date, including things like sell sheets, because sell sheets somehow get way out of date. Who knows why? But they do. So updating those and printing them out. I like to email publishers before I go interact with them in the booth. But always having the physical thing can be really helpful because it just reminds them. So I print out a lot of those and have some way to carry them around, because carrying around a giant sheet of paper is not so helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Fortessa. I'm sorry, Darren.
Oh, I was saying, what about you, David?
Oh, okay. I just jumped the gun. For me, I've always heard good stories about how a publisher didn't like my design, or maybe they did, but whatever. And they were giving me an extra time of day, and they're asking, well, what else do you have? And so I was lucky because I brought 2 other designs. So I think that's kind of a maybe not guaranteed scenario, but it'd be kind of a neat thing to have as a backup plan. Is to if you're trying to go to a convention, to bring your design or something and try to get it signed, having some backup designs. As far as on the publisher side, as I do more and more things with Weird Draft Games, I play obviously plenty of Weird Draft games, but it's usually just amongst a group of friends versus trying to demonstrate a game or teach strangers to play a game. It's going to be a lot different. So definitely something I'll need to practice and make sure I get those down, because it would be nice to look a bit professional when I'm teaching a game for the company I'm representing. So
yeah. Well, and I second that idea, because that happened to me where I was meeting with the publisher and showing off my cat game, and they're like, this is great, but we already have a cat game. Do you have anything else? And I was like, I do. I have a game about hedgehogs. Let's talk about hedgehogs. And so I was able to quickly just transition over, because I was prepared. I had my giant luggage of all the games that I'm possibly working on, just so even if your games aren't in really pitch ready, if you're sitting with a publisher and they're like, hey, do you have this thing, and you have something that is close to it, even if it's you can say to them, hey, this isn't in a very pitchable state, but let's talk about it anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think for myself, I kind of, when I was pitching, The only preparation that I did for conventions really was to see if there was some sort of a sign-up sheet for playtesting, because some conventions want you to sign up for specific time slots or tables rather than just show up and playtest. That was my main concern when I did go to conventions, was the playtesting, because I didn't really know anyone. And for me, the big thing was seeing what other people were doing and trying to get my stuff out there. If I wanted to approach a publisher, I would sign up for events like the Shark Tank, though that's been more the digital thing. Though there was one physically at the same convention with BGG Con. It was Tabletop Voices, Tabletop Network Conference. It was a long series of words strung together, but they were in the same building at the same week. However, there are other events like publisher speed dating events that you have to sign up beforehand, where you did need your sell sheet, and they would let you know if you were in or not, because there was a limited amount of space for people to participate. So things like that, I would try to participate. Otherwise, I'd show up to a convention and really just stay in the playtest room. Carla can attest, I spent 90% of my time, I spent 70% of my time in the playtest room, and then I spent probably 20% of my time finding places to eat, and then another 10% sleeping and just like getting my space and recuperating. So yeah, that I kept it pretty simple. But we have a really cool question, which is, do you think pitching at conventions will change now that more pitching has moved to online?
So I think there'll still be like some pitching online, but I think like pitching in person is just so nice, because you get to like feel the components. Like I don't think anyone is like, yay, tabletop simulator, I get to do this again. It's just like, it's really nice, like as a publisher, like getting to meet the designer and like talk with them and have like that 45 minutes or so. It's super helpful, like way more helpful than the online pitches, just because I can like kind of get like a handle of what the designer's personality is, like on top of like how they take feedback and like all the like human interaction types of things that you don't get from online pitches. And it's just nice to play games in person. Like that's just, if I had to choose between like never playing in Tabletop Simulator again and always playing in Tabletop Simulator, I would choose never. Just I like playing games in person, so I assume like other publishers are like that as well.
I think that there's also going to be an interesting, not divide, but I do think there's going to still be a strong presence to online pitching, particularly with mass market, because what came to my attention was Mojo Nation, which was like a lot of the large name brands like Hasbro and Mattel and things like that. But it's a gathering that usually happens in Europe, it seems, and they made it online this year for the first time. And being exposed to that and being able to pitch to things overseas, that seems like a big deal. And it seems like they kind of really streamlined that process. I think with mass market companies to that level, they don't really attend so many of the hobby gaming conventions. So I think that for them, probably doing these online pitches is pretty beneficial, instead of like one big thing, especially if you can teach your game over Zoom, not Tabletop Simulator. That's great for like in pandemic, but like Carla said, that is, if we can do it without Tabletop Simulator, that'd be great. But if you're able to, teach your game through Zoom, which is what some companies were doing beforehand, like AEG, or some sort of a video chat, then I think that is still definitely going to be there. But within the hobby, I definitely feel like you want to know who you're working with. That's why I said mass market, because it's like hundreds of different people working in this building, and who knows who's going to get your game once it's signed. But when you're working like one-on-one and it's a smaller company and you have to like deal with each other, you want to know the person that you are collaborating with. So it's better. It's easier to know that person once you actually meet them and talk to them, look them in the eyeball, and make sure that you're good.
Yeah, I would say you're both probably right. Like, I mean, the point of the board games is the physicality of it, and so taking a pitch in person is going to give you a much better representation of how that game's going to work versus Zoom or Tabletop Simulator. However, because of the pandemic, and I would even wager that a lot of people might expect you to just know how to put in Tabletop Simulator or run a playthrough on Zoom or whatever meeting tool you use, because so many have done it the past year plus, to where it might almost be an expected skill for some level of pitching. And so I would still suggest, if you haven't learned it yet, to figure out Tabletop Simulator or practice pitching in an online meeting environment.
Yeah, I'd second that. I think your best chances, if you want to give yourself, if you really want to get your game signed, learn how to do Tabletop Simulator, learn how to use Zoom, learn how to use a second camera so people can see your face and the board at the same time, and go to conventions. Do all the things, and you'll have the best chances of meeting that right person or showing off the right game, because pitching is really hard. You might go to a lot of speed dating, and you might meet somebody. I met Fortessa 2 or 3 years ago. But because she pitched me one game, then I signed a game some years later. So you need to try all the things and just see what happens.
Yeah. So speaking of pitching, what would you say is the best way to approach a publisher? Because I'm sure everybody has a different story or different thoughts on that.
For me, I always like to email publishers a month before the convention starts, if possible, giving them enough time to respond or not respond, because the month before a convention can kind of be really busy, well, especially the week before. But if you approach a publisher actually at a convention, their schedule might just be completely and utterly booked. So reaching out a good at least a couple weeks before the convention starts is always nice. If you're at a small enough convention, though, emailing during the convention can also be super wonderful, because maybe they some meeting went away or they surprisingly have time. So reaching out both via email or Twitter or whatever can be helpful. But approaching their booth and just asking them if they have time can work out a lot. I would definitely advise listen to the people at the booth, because they're there because they know things. From the other's perspective, as a publisher, I've had a ton of designers that they were told, what the process is, and they decided to assume that person that was telling them was lying and going around and trying to get to me in some other manner. They were told hey, put your sell sheet here, Carla will look at it when she has time. And so they went through Twitter and they're hey, I'm here, we should meet up, or they told straight up lies, because my booth staff talks to me and is hey, this person was very mean to me. So listen to what the booth staff say, and if they say do this process, do that process. Otherwise it shows that you don't listen to instructions.
Yeah, nobody wants to work with that. Yeah, I like that. You just approach a publisher at a convention, just approach them. Don't assume that, I don't want to say assume the worst, assume that they don't have time for you. Conventions are stressful for publishers. That you've got a ton going on, but it doesn't hurt to say, do you have time? If not, what's the best method of submitting this? Do I leave a sell sheet here? Do you want me to email you? Is there a contact email I can use? And again, like Carla said, at a smaller convention, you actually might have more luck with that. I've had more luck with that. Meeting and just talking with publishers, even about the game design. and it's a much more comfortable environment at a small convention. So I guess I'm kind of leading this question into smaller conventions too, not just kind of Origins or Gen Con or PAX Unplugged or anything like that. But yeah, I think if you just approach and then kind of listen to what they've got to say and like I said, follow instructions and react accordingly. If I'm at a convention and you approach me and I have time, I'll listen to you. If I don't, leave a sell sheet.
And I would definitely second the small convention thing. Like I've signed either like signing with my company or getting some of my game designs signed through smaller conventions, probably like 10 games. But I have had no traction at Origins or Gen Con because there's just all the things that are happening all the time. So there's just a lot more time and less stress at smaller conventions.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm easily intimidated by publishers, or at least I used to be very, very intimidated by the idea of pitching to publishers. So I would not approach them unless I had like 100% the go ahead to solicit my game, because I signed up for like, oh, it's publisher speed dating. So you know what you signed up for. You want to be here, or you chose to be here. And, you know, if it was something where I reached out through email and, you know, set up a time to meet with them so that I'm not just coming up to them, because you don't know what's going on whenever you come up to a publisher, and you don't know if they are even open to taking submissions. And, you know, while it's totally okay if they say no and, you know, you walk away, for me, that's soul crushing. So I like to avoid that particular method. In fact, I don't know if Carla knows this, but Carla was the first publisher I actually pitched to in person, and I was shaking right before our game. And Carla's the best person that you can ever sit down to have a pitch with. But I was just like, oh my God. So it's definitely, you know yourself, know what you're comfortable with, and how you approach publishers. And especially, I know when I started, I was introduced, or rather I was told, oh, hey, you should talk to this publisher at one particular convention. And a person kept telling me to go talk to X publisher and kept pointing me out, like, you haven't talked to them like all weekend. So eventually I walked over and did it. And they looked at me like, why are you bothering me? And yeah, I don't have time. So you go in your own time. And, you know, definitely if you don't feel you're ready, then that's totally okay, because, you know, that confidence about yourself and your game is important. And it comes over whenever you're talking. But, you know, only you can decide whenever you and your game are ready. And when you do, curate your time and your space whenever you choose to approach a publisher, just as they do the same for themselves, and just respect each other.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I know that I've had some designers where, like, apparently I'm super intimidating because I see them like sweating a lot, like profusely, and it is kind of awkward when that happens. But you know, other people like it is a thing. Like I get nervous when I talk to publishers, even though I'm a publisher myself, and you know, we all have to get to this point where we're super confident in our games. And even if you never get to that point and you're always like super nervous and shaking, like at least you're doing it. So, you know, take your time and figure out the best way forward for you.
So, how do you go about finding not only publishers, but how do you go about finding designers or games to play test?
Okay, so for the publisher's part, there's usually like an exhibitor list. So I first check all of that to see who's there. But if I'm looking for like a certain publisher, like if I think like, oh yeah, this game would be perfect for Elf Creek Games, and they're not on the exhibitor list, I might go and like look at their website to see if they're going to a certain convention. But for designers, I love just hanging out in the Unpub room. If there's not an unpub room, like at Gen Con, there's still like the double exposure room. Like there's usually somewhere where all the game designers are, and maybe there's free bits somewhere. And that's where I just like to stay and, either wait for somebody to approach me or, go be confident and just introduce yourself to everyone there. And if they're already busy, that's fine. But you can make a ton of friends in the unpub room.
Yeah, the playtesting room is definitely where it's at. Best part of a convention, in my opinion. Actually, that's fact. Decide. Because you've got designers there, you've got publishers there, you've got and they're both potentially helping you with your game. Publishers sees your game and likes it, they sign it. They see your game, they don't like it, but they might have something to say. Designers as other designers as well. Yeah, I've tried there. Have you tried this? I've tried this in my own design. I didn't like it, but it might work for your game. It's definitely the hot spot. That room, and sometimes right outside that room. If that's full, check the tables outside because some stuff happens there too.
Yeah, I definitely echo that with finding the unpub room. For some conventions, they may not have a room, especially if it's like a hybrid convention where it's not just gaming. Then you're going to have just open space where people will sit down their prototypes where they can. In which case, I just look for the person who's just like this with their game out and nobody is at their table. Because I've been that person and it's the worst. So I try and look for people that's kind of, overlooked and they look like they want somebody to sit down to their table. And usually it's not hard to spot if you just take a step back and survey over the large and possibly very loud room.
Yeah, that's actually, I've met a couple cool designers like that, the ones that are just sitting there waiting for something. So you walk over there, you play each other's games, or you play their game, and they're usually reciprocal and will play your game. And that's a good way to, obviously, not only see a game and then get your game tested, but also a good way to kill some time. If you're waiting for it, it might be dead in that room. Maybe during that time, and just waiting for more people to come in. So, yeah, definitely encourage going to that room and just doing any and everything you can in there if your goal is to get your game signed or work on your game.
For sure. And speaking of meeting designers, so a lot of people might not have the opportunity to meet local designers in their area. I know in Georgia, I didn't have a very big pool of people to pull from. But are there other ways that you meet designers maybe before you get to a convention or outside of a convention, other than the unpub room?
So one thing I used to do is just make designer meetups. Like at every convention I went to, I would do like 1 or 2 designer meetups where I'd post in like a Facebook group that I was in. I would always run them for like the Board Game Broads, which is a ladies group. Ladies plus. But like you can post in like Board Game Design Lab and be like, hey, does anyone want to do a meetup at this certain time at this place? And just see if people want to come. So like posting in like this, like if a group or a convention like Origins has a group that's for it, and Gen Con does as well. Like, so you can just post in the group and be like, hey designers, like let's meet up at this time and location. And you do have to have like some amount of confidence because, maybe no one will show up, but maybe somebody will, and you can make some friends. So being willing to put yourself out there and just be like, hey, I'm going to be here. Do you want to also be here? To the big Facebook groups can definitely help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I think I haven't really gone that route as far as posting to the Facebook groups. That's a great idea, especially for a lot of the smaller ones too. Like a lot of the bigger ones, maybe someone's already made that post, but at a smaller one, if there's a Facebook group, you can be that person to make that post, make those friends. I've had luck with just keeping an eye out in my area and seeing where the local playtest events are, non-convention. Almost every designer I've met has been at one of those or at a playtesting room at a convention, and some of them are really good friends now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think for myself, I did several different things to find designer friends. So I joined BGG, which that's that's a crapshoot. You never know. But I found that with BG, there is a solid game design community, and you can post basically a designer diary, and you can comment on different questions people may have. So participating there helped me feel more at ease just participating in discussion about game design. Another thing I did was creating a Twitter, because there's a very active social dynamic for game designers and just gamers in general on Twitter. So it doesn't have to be anything serious. So that somebody could be like, look what I did to my cat Jenkins. And you just be like, you monster, feed him. It could be anything under the sun, not just game design. But I found that I made quite a few connections on Twitter, and I met these people at conventions, and it was just like, oh my gosh, a face. So those little steps before actually going to physical conventions are super helpful, especially if you're more introverted and do better, like maybe on a one-to-one basis. Another thing that you can do is, other than that, there goes my thought. There it goes, blowing in the wind. I don't know.
Vanessa did bring up Twitter, which I definitely recommend. Like, before I attended any sort of convention, I was just on Twitter, and I got to meet all these people, and like I interacted with them like on a semi-daily basis. But then going to my first convention, like I actually got to meet all these people I talked to like online, and it just made the convention like so much better, because instead of going and being like, oh, I know no one at this convention, I went in and I was like, oh, now I have, 30 of my friends are here and I kind of know them. Even though I've never met them in person, I have talked to them. So let's see if they want to hang out or play games or do whatever.
Yes. Thank you, Carla, with the save. And I've remembered the last point is that you also want to curate which conventions you go to, because a big problem for me was I kept going to only local conventions for reasons, but those were the easiest for me to get to. However, once I started going to conventions outside of my state, that was super helpful with me actually meeting those people that were on Twitter and just like, I don't know, more visible online. And you just get like this kind of cross-pollination of people from all different sides of the country and from other countries, depending on which convention you go to. So that could be a big factor as well. And one thing that you can do to cut costs is try to reach out to publishers to see who may need help running a booth. And see if you can get in with them and possibly help run a booth and volunteer, and then the rest of that time you can go around the convention. That's a great way to start getting your foot in and starting to get to know people, as well as reducing just a little bit of the cost to go to a convention that may be outside of your state.
Yeah, Fortessa knows so much. I definitely agree with that. I've had so many people that volunteer to work for me, and then like I later sign their game because while I'm working at the booth, I get to know them as a person, and we hang out afterwards. And like I just want to sign my friends' games, and they become my friends, so it all works out. And another thing, Fortessa was mentioning like how to make conventions cheaper. Once you start like meeting people and having friends, like just reaching out and asking like if they have a spare room or something, if they like live in a place with a convention. Like I know it definitely was scary when I started doing that, but I made a lot of great friends, and then I was able to go to a bunch of conventions because I was able just to like stay at their house, not buy the hotel. I got really cheap flights if you fly on like Tuesday and Wednesday. So instead of a out-of-town convention costing like thousands of dollars, it costs like $500, which is way more doable. And you also have a friend, because like if they're going to the convention and you're at their house, then they bring you, and you have a partner in crime to go do all the things. You're not alone.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Once you get to the convention, you've hammed it up you've been at the playtest. Are there any tips for what you do after the convention? Any things about, following up with a publisher or to follow up with the new designers you met, business cards, anything like that?
So definitely. I don't know about everyone else, but my memory is the worst. So whenever I have a meeting with anyone, I try to write down like their name, get their email, business card, what, etc. Like write down things that we talked about. So then after the convention, I just sit down like maybe a week after and I email them all. And I'm like, hey, it was great meeting you at this convention. Maybe give a time and a place and then talk about like something that you talked about because like maybe they also are very forgetful. But if you like remind them that the entire thing happened, they'll be like, yes, I definitely know this person and they won't get you confused with somebody else. And then you can also be like, oh yeah, what did you think of this game that I pitched to you? So yeah, just being helpful and memorable like that definitely helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I echo that. My memory is sometimes great and sometimes it's the worst. So sitting down and really just I've probably taken like notes on my hand at some point and the corner of some, napkin. So getting all that's kind of squared away into my own personal format that I use to do things is helpful. And that could include, follow up with this publisher, like Carlos said, in 1 week. It's definitely, it's important, I think. I'm trying to find a good analogy. If you've lost a football game, right, you have to go over the tape. What went wrong? What went right? And kind of go through all those things. I think that's also can be helpful to help you prepare for the next one because there's probably another one that's coming up in a month, and now the clock starts for that one. So get all your ducks in a row. Get your stuff ready for the next one. I think that's important to do after a big convention or any convention, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree on the playback of what I've done, right or wrong. Very helpful. I would say for me, I'm in the team of the terrible memory, like out of sight, out of mind, turn around and I've forgotten your whole name. But I think that for me, the best thing that I would do is if I wanted to make a connection with the person, I would ask if they had like a Twitter or if they had a Facebook, if we were like really hit it off. And I would friend them like right there while I'm looking at them and their eyeballs. If I really liked their game, I actually started an Instagram like right before times. And so it is very small, but I started an Instagram just to remember the prototypes that I played. So I would take a picture after asking permission, and then I would, write down the name of the prototype and tag them in it. And that was my little like scrapbook for prototypes and conventions, which was fun until pandemic hit. So that there are different ways, like pictures jog my memory and like actually establishing a social connection, like a Twitter or something, so that I can eventually ping that person. Because even if I forget, which is highly likely, how I met them, I will interact with them online and, I will create new memories. So that's what I do. And if it's with the actual publisher, again, I immediately will email them unless they ask for me to send something or update something, like say, hey, make this change to your prototype and then send it to me. In which case I will then, find a computer and I will update that prototype that night probably. And then I will email them with all the previous references of how we met and send them what they asked for. And if I am not able to do that, then I write it down. I have like several notebook apps in my phone. And I will just write that there so that I can make sure that it will not be forgotten. And calendar apps, a calendar reminder. Never underestimate a good calendar reminder.
All of the apps, just get them all.
Yes.
Especially calendar apps, because I've learned that I can't do anything unless it's on my calendar, but if it is, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do it.
Yes. I've color coded my calendar apps now. All of my gaming stuff is purple. It's you can do a lot. You can do a lot, no matter how much you forget. So don't believe in yourself. Okay. So we've speaking of following up with publishers, how long do you usually wait to follow up with publishers? I already answered because I don't really wait. But go ahead.
So I do try to email them like a week out or like days out whenever I have the time. But then again, like if they haven't responded, I do it again like in a month, because publishers have to deal with like so many things in the week after, and maybe they have another convention coming up. Like I don't know if anyone's looked at the convention schedule for this year, but there's Gen Con and then 2 weeks and then Origins and then 1 day and then Geekway and then several days and then Essence. So like if you meet somebody at Gen Con, they might be completely booked for the next 2 months. So in that case, that is a very rare case. I would wait like longer, maybe 2 months, like after all the conventions are over. But like it's just an email. Like you won't get annoying to the publisher unless you email them like 20 times or more than once a month or something like that. So don't be bothersome, but like don't feel like you're going to bother them unless you're extreme about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This year is an interesting year with all those conventions in a row. So in a normal year, you might get lucky and have some time right after a convention. Maybe they're not ridiculously busy. Preparing for the next one, and you might be able to get an email off and maybe get a response maybe after a couple weeks. But unfortunately, this year is not that. But yeah, if someone was sending me emails, if I looked at someone's game and I didn't reply in that first one, and they sent me another one, and they weren't harassing me in that second one, I'd just consider a reminder, and I might not even get to that one. And if I got a third and the same thing, same respect, and just following up again. I know you said you were going to 3-5 conventions. Just wanted to make sure this was still on your radar, because there's a very unbothersome and very respectful way to send people reminders, even multiple times. And most people are pretty receptive to that, I think. I'd hope.
For sure.
Okay, we had a question from the audience. Do any of you have a wish list of things you'd like to see as changes for in-person conventions? I mean, I have so many, but I'll let Fertessa go if she wants to.
I'm going to have to think on that. You go right ahead.
Okay, so one, everyone washing their hands, every time they go to the bathroom. That would be super cool, wouldn't it? It would mean that we wouldn't have a pandemic situation. Wearing masks if you're sick, like, isn't that a great idea? Like, imagine not getting con crud because the sick people just, keep their sickness to themselves. I'm probably going to have like a lot more hand sanitizer and stuff, just all the time, because that's my, coping mechanism, I guess, at this point. But if everyone just used hand sanitizer, even though they're washing their hands, that'd be cool. Less exhibitor hours. Like, I know that as an exhibitor, you probably are like, what? Why? But I actually do enjoy conventions sometimes, but not so much the exhibitor hours. So, like, I think there'd be like the same amount of sales at most conventions if there was less hours. People would just do less mindless wandering. And finally, I would love if there's like more after hours areas for people to hang out that's not the bar. Just because, I like to play games, and like during the exhibitor hours, I am, doing that. But like if I want to play games till 3 a.m, it'd be nice to have like a nice semi-quiet place to do that. That's just, safe. And it's just like, oh yeah, we can go here. We can play games. We're not going to get kicked out. And, we can just have moments of quiet, enjoy the games.
Yeah,
I think,
a good one. Good.
I think for my wish list, I kind of want a little bit more regulation, not too much, but just kind of, this is a time for the play testing. And now we're just going to have a quick 30-minute to hour-long break, which I encourage you to go eat and wash your hands. And now we are back. We're back playtesting. And again, we have another break where you are encouraged to eat and wash your hands and hydrate and go to the bathroom and use deodorant, all sorts of things. There's so many things you could get up to in an hour. So I feel like people will not be as encouraged to snack while they're playing, which normally is fine, concrete. But, besides getting the dusties on the pieces and then transferring it to whoever else now touches it and then decides to eat, there's just a whole thing going on there. So that's my big wish list, is like just a little bit more regulation, kind of like a traffic stoplight that gets people moving and also taking care of their bodies, and also like hand sanitizing stations, and also wearing your masks if you're sick, and if you think that you have like congestions, and even if you think it's allergies, you're still wearing your mask because we don't know it's allergies. And yes, that's my vision in the sun there.
To go off of something Fortessa said about the breaks and stuff, if you like going to conventions that have like mandatory breaks, Metatopia is amazing. Like, because it has like lunch and dinner breaks, and it like you don't feel like you're missing out if you just go to your room and sit in the silence or take a shower or eat food, because everyone else is doing the same thing. So Metatopia is definitely an amazing convention for a variety of reasons. Avenel is fantastic. So if you like having a lunch hour, Metatopia.
Yes, that's why they're my favorite. They set the bar. They did. I've seen it. I've seen the bar now, and now I believe everyone can do it. I believe in you. Okay, go ahead, David.
I have no follow-up to this question. These are all perfect answers. Anything that I could say would be absolutely worthless as far as adding anything to this conversation. I can only agree with everything except no, everything's fine. I don't know. Do I have a personal wish list for conventions that's not happening? Yeah, I don't know. More keep working on respecting each other and being nice. On top of everything else, responsible and clean and smart and safe.
So on that note, any overall convention tips, like just going to conventions?
Start us off, David.
Yes. I would say my first tip is to volunteer for things, whether that's for the actual convention, especially if you've never been, well, I won't say if you've never been there before, but if you're a newbie going to conventions, that's a great way to meet people and get, sometimes they pay for your ticket. I think it depends on the amount of hours you volunteer for. But just volunteering is great for that. Volunteering at a booth is great. Demoing it, so you'll learn how to play games, especially if it's a company you like. Then it's just playing games or showing people how to play games that you already know you like. You'll meet publishers that way. Like Carla was saying, she's met people at her booth. And obviously no guarantee that your game gets signed, but that's one more person who might have some insight into the world that's willing to give you some feedback potentially, if you're a decent person. Yes, volunteer, but also be a decent person. Be responsible, I guess. Don't volunteer and then not show up, or just be not a good person. But I feel like that's common sense. But yes, I think volunteering is a great way to meet publishers, designers, and have a lot of fun, and sometimes get swag, freebies, con tickets, whatever a particular thing is given away. And I mentioned this last question, but yes, just continue to be a good person. Nobody wants to work with someone that's not really a good person. I personally don't care how good your game is if you're not fun to work with, because for me, at the end of the day, it's still all about having fun, and I want to have fun. And you being not a great person is not fun for me, and probably not fun for a lot of other people. So yes, continue to be good, do good things, be a good playtester, be honest, be good for feedback, be good at receiving feedback, constructive criticism, These are all just kind of common sense things that you would be surprised how often are not followed at these conventions and playtest rooms, etc. So just a friendly reminder to do those things.
Mhm. And yes, my tips. I'm gonna do my top 3. Number 1, treat yourself. So you need to make sure that you treat yourself to water, the best drink out there, to food. It's delicious. Your body needs it. You're hangry. No one wants to game with a hangry person. And 3, just go out and take a walk and see the sun a little bit, just a little bit. It hydrates you in a different way, like photosynthesis. So do that. Okay. Number two, you want to be respectful of other people's time, especially if you are a game designer or a play tester. So, if somebody says something that you don't like, it's okay, because you have the rest of the convention and you don't have to sit there and waste time and defend why you think that your game is the shizness. You just keep that in your heart and keep it rolling, And then number three, whew, I don't know. I think that's enough. Number 2 is good. All right.
Oh gosh. Number 3 is have fun. Don't forget to have fun.
Yeah. There we
It's
go.
supposed to be fun. Do all those things
Yeah.
and you will have fun though. So, and others will have fun too, which is also important.
Exactly.
So yeah, go out, have fun at conventions, and thanks all for watching. I'm Carla Kopp. This is David Brugula, and for Tessa, and apparently the cat.
There's a cat.
It's fine.
Yes, it's fine. They waited all till now. See how respectful.
What a good cat. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.